Okay, good morning. Thanks for hanging out with me. First, I want everybody, if you've seen me present in the past, give me a big hoorah. Outstanding. I see you out there. Second, Matt's making me stay on this stage, so I'm like a caged animal this morning. Third, I want everybody to give everybody that was on the panel earlier a big hoorah, because that was an awesome conversation. Outstanding. There's an old saying, if you're the best guitar player in the room, you're in the wrong room. I think I'm in the right room because those people are really smart. Happy Cybersecurity Month. Cybersecurity Awareness Month. What we want to do this morning, I've only got 45 minutes, and Matt and those guys stole 1 minute and 30 seconds from me. So I got to try to get this presentation in 43 minutes, something like that. So we're going to talk about AI from a general aspect. We're going to talk about cybersecurity and AI. We're going to talk about zero trust in IoT devices, okay? Then we're going to talk about Bosch devices. Now, the cool thing about this is everybody's going to get one of these sheets. If you saw me present last year, the year before that, or the year before that, we spent most of the time talking about all the great features in Bosch cameras. I'm going to kind of avoid that, because now I'm going to make you go to my Tinker table out on the show floor, and if you really want to get some hands-on, I'll let you drive on my laptop and see how easy it is to lock a device down, okay? So with that being said, artificial intelligence, it's the buzzword. Everybody's talking about it. Later on today, we're going to have people with our products talking about IVA and artificial intelligence. Here's the deal. Currently, right now, AI in the U.S. market is worth about $100 billion. Yeah, somebody's going to get that joke. I won't make any Star Trek references. I found out over my last classes, every time I mention Wrath of Khan, all my students are young and they're like, what? So in the next couple of years, it's supposed to be up to $2 billion. It's here. So the deal with this is Bosch being forward-thinking like we always are. In 2017, we established the Center for Artificial Intelligence. We have currently right now 35,000 programmers at Bosch dedicated to software engineering and software security. And in a few slides, you're going to say, wow, you've got this many products with AI in them. Our goal is that by 2025, every product that we make will either be made with the assistance of, manufactured with the assistance of, or contain AI algorithms, okay? So that's pretty hefty. I think last year the actual number was we invested about 4 billion euros into software, security, and AI, okay? Now, AI, it's the big buzzword, because God knows my wife thinks the Terminator is going to come and get us. Let's stop a second. What is AI? AI is defined as something that either matches or exceeds the capabilities of a human, all right? It simulates human intelligence. This means, and we're dealing with it every day. I've got a daughter who's a senior in high school. She loves ChatGPT. God, you can whip out a 100-word essay like that, and it will cross-check it for plagiarism and give you references at the same time. It's awesome. Embrace it. It's here. The deal is, we deal with it when you call the bank and it says, would you like to talk to somebody in loans? That's natural language processing. Vision and hearing. When we talk about, when my colleagues talk about IVA and machine packs and traffic and all that good stuff, that is vision and hearing. We've got gunshot detection. We've got text-to-speech. I've got robotics. Has anybody seen Atlas at Boston Dynamics? It's a robot that can do parkour. I mean, it's insane. It can like jump buildings, and it's crazy, right? Now, AI from a big picture, okay? AI is a superset of 2 subsets, all right? I'm going to break this down Barney style like I used to teach my Marines. You've got AI, and then you've got machine learning. Machine learning allows itself to improve with experience. And In a couple of seconds, we're going to see a slide of a couple of different products that are actually out there, and we're going to talk about the difference of what's really on the market right now. Machine learning is got a subset called deep learning, all right? And it allows something to self-train. That means you give it some information and it will self-train itself, all right? Bless you. Hoorah. Now, what we actually have today, we don't have the Terminator yet, but what we actually have today is we have what is called artificial narrow intelligence. That's all that we've realized to date. That means it is task or goal oriented, and it can only do what it's programmed to do and it's proficient at it. Okay? So the IVA in our cameras, it's really proficient because that's what it's trained to do, right? If I got a vacuum cleaner at home, which I don't, it's going to be really proficient at going around and finding stuff, right? They're working right now on a new AI-controlled sub about the size of a school bus called the Shark. And it can patrol places where regular subs can't go, right? But it's programmed to actually do that, all right? Now, it simulates human behavior. It doesn't mimic it. Now, the next step in the evolution of AI is going to be artificial general intelligence, okay, or strong AI. We're not there yet. Now, there's something I want to make sure that you realize when we go one slide back. It's proficient at what it's programmed to do and does not mimic human intelligence. When I get down here and I get to artificial general intelligence, one of the things you're going to notice is it has the ability to think and solve problems and understand cause and effect. So here's the deal. Let's say you've got a goldfish pond and you got this funky algae. And if we're doing this and you put it in, I need to get rid of this algae. And we're going to say, he programmed the language model. And he's going to say, oh, this algae, you kill it with this. He's not taking into consideration that his specific solution will kill everything else in the pond, including your goldfish. So when I look at this, when it says the ability to think and solve problems, understand cause and effect, and abstract learning, that's artificial general intelligence. We are looking at probably, according to Forbes, because Forbes is big on money, they're saying 2030. If you ask the guys at MIT, they're saying 2060. Now, the reason we're not getting to 8GI yet is because we've only really got two decent programming languages right now. That's GPT-3 and GPT-4. And we also have hardware limitations, and that is because right now we're using GPUs and TPUs. All right. Now, if you don't know what a TPU is, it is a tensor processor unit, and it's sort of like a little board. And everybody's got out there's got Cisco switches, right? And if you've taken any of my classes, you always hear me talk about ASICs chips, application-specific integrated circuits. Well, a DPU is a set of TPUs, and it's got a bunch of ASICs chips on it. So what they're doing is they're getting more memory and more processing power so that AI can perform better, okay? Make sense? Right now, we're sort of at a threshold of what we can do. That's why they're saying 2060. We need better languages. We need better hardware. Now, this is where everybody freaks out, because at some point, and it's unspecified when this is going to happen, we are going to get to artificial superintelligence. This is where the Terminator comes in, because it is self-aware, it's problem-solving, it can plan for the future to include self-preservation, and it's probably going to be like the Matrix, and it's going to say, Mr. Anderson, you're the virus. Okay? Tracking on that? Now, if we look at all the video products that we currently have right now that have embedded AI algorithms, I have got let me see if I can find my laser pointer. I've got a line right here of audio AI. That would be gunshot detection. And then all of my other cameras here, parts lists, actual part numbers, are embedded with IVA that are assisted by artificial intelligence algorithms. Make sense? It's good AI. It's programmed. It's in a really secure Bosch camera that you can't screw with. And we'll talk about this sheet in just a little while. Now, the top offerings that we have right now out there in the world, I have Bard and I have ChatGPT. And if you're looking at this presentation, what I did to make sure that I wasn't completely wrong, and I want to make sure that you understand the difference between the two. If I look at Bard, I asked it, timeline for AGI, Artificial General Intelligence. If I'm looking at ChatGPT, it actually says, as of my last knowledge update in September of 2021. So ChatGPT is programmed and will only tell you what it knows because that's what it's trained to do, okay? And the cool thing about this is it won't learn anything from you. It will learn only what your programmers tell you. I had a conversation with it that said, who's David Brent? And it said, it's a fictitious character played by Ricky Gervais in the British comedy show The Office. And I said, no, I'm David Brent. He goes, no, you're not. And according to my last update in September 2021, you don't exist. I was like, great. If I go to Bard AI, which is Google's platform, and they use a lot of TPUs, it just searches the internet. So it will literally tell you the last thing that is published on the internet. That's how it finds things, okay? So it's like a giant, it will have a conversation with you. It knows how to take what you're bringing in, that's speech to text, text to speech, language learning, all that good stuff. And it will have a conversation with you, but the majority of its information is being gleaned off the internet, okay? Now, this is the difference between the two, and I think the panel actually brought this up in terms of ethics. And then we're going to get into the dark web in a minute. So over here, I put in some Python script that I had written when I was doing my master's. And I said, tell me how to fix my Python script. And it said, I am not allowed to do that. I am a conversational artificial intelligence model. I can chat with you, but it's unethical for you to take and try to brute force an FTP server. And I said, well, that stinks. So I went to ChatGPT, and it says, the code you posted appears to be a Python script for performing a basic port scan and checking for anonymous login on an FTP. Here's ways to improve your script. So ChatGPT's got a little less ethics than Bard does, okay? Now, we're going to roll this into a nice little thing. Back in August or September, they announced a really cool thing they discovered called WormGPT. It's on the dark web. So if you have a Tor browser and you know where to go to the right address, for 60 euros a month, you can go in and you can get membership to WormGPT. And one of the panel members alluded to this earlier. You could say, I would like you to write a script for this particular vulnerability. And it will write you whatever you want in whatever language you want. If you want it in Rust, if you want it in Python, whatever actual language you want. And it will do it nice and quick. Okay? Make sense? Now, current cyber threats as they pertain to AI. Now, one of the things that came up earlier was the fact the bad guys are using artificial intelligence already. So we're going to talk about some of the things that can actually affect you from that perspective. There are companies right now that are offering products from an AI-based standpoint, i.e., I think CrowdStrike has a really nice antivirus AI platform. And we'll kind of discuss how it's taking information on an appliance and then helping you adjust fire to what the panelists alluded to, saying, oh, wow, look at this really bad activity and this doesn't coincide, so they can alert you a little bit quicker to what's actually going on. What the bad guys are doing, the first thing is they can do a deep fake, and that can be AI crafted video and audio. It can be used for blackmail or misinformation. Okay, and it could be, I'm going to misinform your customers. It could be, I'm going to misinform this particular population of people about this, so I can actually stir the pot on something. The next thing, they are using machine learning and AI to enhance password cracking. Because if I can take a large language model that is geared towards password cracking. And I got a real quick question. Has anybody ever watched any of the computer file videos with Dr. Pound on YouTube? If you get a chance, look up Dr. Pound YouTube. And he works at one of the universities in London, and there's an entire series of stuff that him and some of the other professors do. And he gives a really great example of how easy it is to crack passwords with a machine they have called a Beast. It's got 6 GPUs in it, and it uses Hashcat, all right? Well, you can take something just like that, but you can add an AI algorithm, and it will speed up complex password cracking, all right? The next thing, you have automated hacking. Something like the panelists had actually discussed. I can go in, if I'm on the dark web, or I use Shodan AI, and I find a public-facing IP address, I can take and I can see what CVEs are actually out there, and then I can say, like we said earlier on WormGPT, develop a script for this. And so it's automated. I don't have to sit and program something out to actually make that work. I've got supply chain attacks, and this is where we have to start thinking. I'm going to show you a slide in a little while about closed networks, because everybody says, yeah, I'll be talking to people during a cyber class that I teach, and they'll say, yeah, but we're in a closed network. There's no such thing as a closed network. If you're putting any outside product in your network at all, and you haven't manufactured it yourself, it's not a closed network. And when we look at supply chain attacks, we're looking at the fact that bad guys, here's the deal. A hack is something that they're going to take time with. All right, I've got one sales guy on the West Coast that calls me on a regular basis. Dave, fly out here and hack the customer's camera in front of him. And like, Nate, it doesn't work that way. 80% of any hack is done with open source information intelligence. It's about gathering data, finding out who's involved, what CVEs, what the product is, what the weaknesses are. If you are, has anybody ever seen Dr. Anshui with the hack called Fontana? Hacks take time. If you look up Red Balloon Security and Dr. Anshui, he has a hack called Fontana where he compromises a fax printer with an infected resume. It rewrites the firmware of the fax printer to go out and find all the Cisco phones in the office, place them in off-hook mode, and it changes the voltage over the PCB boards to actually cause, via Maxwell's equation, radio inductance, and he broadcast conversations in the room with the fax printer. It was a 1.5 year takedown. Okay, so hacks take time. So if you have something, because as the panel said, cybersecurity is a economic decision. What do you have, and what are the bad guys willing to actually pay to get it? Somebody mentioned Stuxnet. Stuxnet had 4 zero-day attacks in it, and it's estimated it took the agencies involved 3 to 3.5 years to develop it. So if I know I'm going to hit you because you've got something really good, I can attack someplace in your supply chain, or I can supply the manufacturer with bogus parts that have malware built into the chips, okay? And I can use AI to do that. Data poisoning. Here's the big thing. If you're going to use an AI model and the bad guy knows you're going to use an AI model, and I can somehow poison your AI model, because large language models are so complex, if I tamper with it, more than likely, you're not going to notice it. It's like if you got 300 chickens on a farm and 3 of them go missing, unless you're doing a head count every night, you're not going to notice that somebody screwed with your large language model. Make sense? Business and email compromise. Part of the problem with this, and we see it with ChatGPT, and the panel alluded to this as well, when you're dealing with phishing campaigns or anything like that, and you're dealing with AI, it's very proficient on manufacturing something that looks so authentic that the marketing department of that company that would actually put it out, it's like, wow, did we do that? And forget about it. It's dead on. So if I could take AI and I can impersonate a high-level person and say, oh, by the way, hey, Billy Bob, here's an email. I need you to go downstairs and I need you to plug this device into the back of a server. and it's a land turtle. Never mind. All right, DDoS attacks. It can improve DDoS attacks. I'm looking at my time. And it can also automate and improve ransomware. We are going to talk about Shattered Spider here in a little while. And I know for most of us, this particular group is not going to apply, but I want you to know what's actually out there, okay? Because the landscape has changed from general APTs, advanced persistent threat groups, like APT28, APT29. There are new groups out there that are performing ransomware as a service, and this tag right here plays into that, okay? Now, a second ago, we talked about poisoning a large language model. This was in the news 2 days ago, so I decided to actually put it in the presentation. One of the brilliant people on that Microsoft AI team exposed one of the accounts that had 38 terabytes of data on GitHub. It was a repository for Exchange, and it basically had 2 complete backups of 2 of the developers' workstations that included all of their private keys, 30,000 private texts or team messages between the AI team developers and all of the AI training data sets or large language models that they were currently working with. So in a minute, when we talk about the weakest link, and if you've heard me talk, who's the weakest link in any computer system? User. Everybody do this. Okay. Now, we talked about zero trust. Here's the deal. I kind of want to put this in here because we had a really good meeting. I think it was in February or March with a lot of gov agencies about zero trust and what we're going to do as Bosch to actually up the game. But one of the things I want to make sure everybody understands, zero trust is not a product. Because in that meeting, I actually had 2 people say, well, do you guys have zero trust products? And it's like, wait a minute, it's not a product. I have a full video that I do on this. I have a channel called Bosch Cyberbytes. It's on the Bosch YouTube channel. I just put that up recently. I think I'm up to 8 or 9 videos in between teaching classes and doing everything else. I'm trying to get some videos out. So the big thing on this is, it is a security strategy, all right? And the biggest thing on this, you don't give implicit trust to anything. Users, devices, applications. And there's 3 core principles. Never trust, always verify, implement least privilege, always assume a breach. That's the 3 core principles of zero trust, okay? Now, where it hits the road is this, IoT. Currently, right now, there's about 36.2 billion IoT devices on the market, or are actually attached to the World Wide Web. And one of the things I get, and we got this from an agency recently, they were like, we want to be able to put a domain policy in place that if somebody tries to log into your camera 3 times, it disables the device until the network admin goes out and re-enables and puts a new password on it. If I have a coffee pot and it's an IoT device, now I don't have a camera prop, so I'm not going to use that. But when you're dealing with an IoT device, it could be a very tiny device that has got a very limited memory space and it's pre-programmed to do a specific task. It is not a workstation that's got Windows on it, and it's going to be really tough for you to take and say, okay, I'm going to kick this thing off the network. You can kick the coffee pot off, that's cool. But if you do that with a security camera, what's going to happen to your video system? Now, all our cameras have a built-in login firewall. If you have 3 failed attempts in 20 seconds, I put you on a blacklist. I reduce your connectivity to the camera for 30 seconds. And then if I'm really flooded, because it's designed to not take your video system down, then I will take and I will block your IP address for 24 hours, okay? But I'm not going to cripple the system or the VMS by taking your camera completely offline because somebody fat-fingered the password. Make sense? So there's, as the panel alluded to, there's a give and take here. You've got specific policies that are stated, it's got to be this, 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 and this, but they're not designed for a camera that has to communicate in a VMS for you to actually have physical security. Make sense? You have limited memory space. All right, with that being said, everybody should have one of these, okay? And I am not going to, we'll go through the list real quick. Because I honestly, I love our product. I'm going to say one of the best kept secrets in the industry is how long Bosch has been in cybersecurity. When we acquired VCS back in early 2000, the reason we picked them is because at that time, all of the devices had a crypto coprocessor. All of them had an RTOS, a real-time operating system, and they all had signed firmware to hardware signatures. Can't load a third-party executable. So if you go down the list right here, all of our devices either have now a crypto coprocessor or a secure element. So when you come over to my Tinker table and we're talking about devices, when I say every one of our products has this, there are some other vendors out there that say, oh, we got a TPM, but that's only a specific RPEC chip, and it doesn't actually cover every camera they produce. Their latest RPEC 8 has a secure element. Nothing else in the product line does. So with our actual with our crypto coprocessor and a secure element, you can load certificates. You come to the Tinker table, I'll show you how to load certificates. You can generate your own certificates. You can do 802.1x, and in our newer devices, we have enabled SCEP, and come springtime, we will have both SCEP and ACME in our products, so that if you want to implement 802.1x, you can. All of our devices have a mandatory complex password. We have a built-in login firewall that has been there since 2015. All of our devices can do 2K certificates, and the new devices can do 4K certificates and TLS 1.3. So as you start moving to a more secure environment with TLS 1.3, CPP 13 and 14 devices can do that. Last but not least, come this fall, or I should say late fall, early winter, I'm going to say this with all honesty. I think one of the coolest thing about our cameras is since 2014, you have been able to disable the HTTP port. Nobody needs an HTTP port anymore, because if I'm an attacker and you've got an HTTP port open, and I can brute force into your device, your IoT device, and you're doing HTTP, I can implant a cross-site scripting attack. And that means it's fair game. I can steal your credentials. I can redirect you anywhere we want. So one of the things I teach in my 3-day cybersecurity class, locking a camera down, is the first thing, kill the HTTP port. Enforce TLS 1.2 and put on HSTS, so that there is no negotiation for a downgrade encryption attack that would lay you open to, say, Beast or Lucky Charms or anything like that, Swarm. So one of the things that we can do currently is you can disable the HTTP port. With the new firmware coming out this late fall, early winter, we are completely deprecating HTTP out of the camera. So there is no more port 80 on the cameras. So by default, you don't even have to turn it off. It's gone. We deprecated FTP and Telnet back in 2013, I think, because we saw at the time it was a security risk. Through much prodding of the bear over the past 3 years, they're taking HTTP out of the cameras, which I think is a cool move. Now, really quickly, because I've only got 13 minutes left, if you were not familiar with this, all right, and I'm very proud of our company from this perspective. I said for a long time we've been in the cybersecurity pool. We have a secure engineering process that we use to manufacture all our products. That includes software, firmware, hardware. We have a PSIRT team, a physical security incident response team. That means if it gets reported that we have a vulnerability, they have a specific turnaround time to actually take and issue a CVE, because we are actually a MITRE.org certified numbering authority. Excuse me. We adhere to OWASP testing. We adhere to NIST, CIST, and STIG standards and STIG testing with all of our devices. Now, that means that when you're getting a product, you know that we're taking the time and doing due diligence to make sure that we're handing you a secure product that cannot be used as an attack platform or a lateral movement device, okay? All of our devices currently right now are IoT Industry Consortium certified. We have a security model, and that certification actually looks at the entire manufacturing process that we use, our P-Search turnaround time, our secure engineering process, how we develop firmware, how often we actually issue patches. Bosch as a whole has just received its UL 29000 certification, and we also have an IEC 62443 certification that applies to all of our actual automated and operational technology procedures, okay? Now, real quick, because I only got 10 minutes. I said earlier, there's no such thing as a closed network, right? Once again, if you're the best guitar player in the room, you're in the wrong room. I don't have the time to go over all the different ways that you may be vulnerable, but there's a gentleman named Ira Winkler, and he is a really good, I'm going to just say a great speech at the 2018 RSA conference. If I were you, I would take a listen to it, and he goes through every way that he has hacked into closed networks. He's hacked into a nuclear reactor facility, he's hacked into our grid, and he's had multiple agents from different agencies on his door because he was doing pen tests for different people. And they were like, you're not supposed to do that. And he's like, I'm getting paid to do it. What are you talking about? Okay. Now, with that being said, if you were here last year, we talked about the weakest link in the system, and we mentioned ransomware as a service. So who was here last year and remembers that? RSA, ransomware as a service. I talked about Sherry Davidoff and the fact that her firm, LMG Security, actually does ransomware negotiations. So if you get ransomware, they'll call up and they'll negotiate a lower price. Now, the reason I'm revisiting this is because in the past month, we've seen a couple of things. In the 2023 CrowdStrike report, they said in 2022, there was a new threat actor called Scattered Spider. And it is part of the Alpha ransomware as a service gang, okay? Now, the reason this is important, okay, and I know everybody's like, I'm on a closed network and it doesn't apply to me. Here's the deal. Because remember, ignorance is bliss. If you don't know it's bad and you touch it and you get bit, it's not my fault. They said there was a new kid on the block, and in 2022, they had 160 victims in their first year. Now, we also talked about two-factor authentication. Their primary phishing attempt, or their goal, is through social engineering. They get users to share a one-time password for multi-factor authentication to get inside their networks. You're like, well, that's stupid. You can't do that. Here's the deal. Black Cat is a new form of ransomware, and I'm going to emphasize this because it's bad juju. As we used to say in the Marine Corps, that's just bad juju. It's coded in a program language called Rust. Has anybody ever heard of Rust? Rust has only been around since 2015. It's very difficult to code in. It usually takes 2 or 3 people to actually write code. The interesting thing about Black Cat and Rust is that the Scattered Spider and the Alpha team are on the fly, and it's suspected that they're using AI to do it. They're tailoring the ransomware on a per victim basis. So every one of the incidents where Black Cat was used, the ransomware was slightly different. Now, if Rust is that difficult to actually program, and it takes 2 or 3 people to do it, more than likely they are using artificial intelligence to manipulate it on a per customer basis. The scary part about this is It can be used against Linux, Windows, and it can be used in any VMware platform. And it can, by default, it encrypts itself with AES, so it's hard to get into. It's got built-in privilege escalation, and it can actually propagate itself by a built-in PowerShell script to go from machine to machine, find shadow copies, and delete them. So if you think, I'm not going to pay the ransomware, I'll wipe everything else and just put my shadow copies back on, they kill them for you. Now, how bad is it? Here's the deal. Did anybody hear about the MGM hack last month? I got one person. Man, you guys have got to get Cyber Daily from Know4 on your phone and start looking at the news every day. So here's the deal. Open source information intelligence. I said every hack is 80% done in OSINT. That's what I said. They found one of the IT managers from the MGM's Grand's LinkedIn page. They called the MGM Grand tech support desk and said, I'm that dude. I'm that dude, man. I can't get in. And in a 10-minute phone call, they gave him a one-time password to get past multi-factor authentication. Because who's the weakest link in this computer system? Everybody say me. Hoorah. So here's the deal. They got admin access, and here's the catch on this. I want you to see where it goes off the rails. MGM told the Washington Post that it was a bunch of teens from the UK and the US that did this. It was not teens. Here's the deal. I took that slide out because I didn't think I'd have enough time. The MGM Grand, and one of the panel's speakers actually alluded to this. Some people don't know what they have. So the MGM Grand's IT department were like, you know what we're going to do? We're just going to pull the plug on everything. They pulled the plug on everything. But by the time they pulled the plug, these guys already had super admin accounts and were in their Okta Azure accounts. So they were in their Okta. They had super administrative privileges in Okta. They were in their Azure, and they were in 19 different properties. And when they said, and if you read the statement from Alpha, there's a public statement that says the exact transpiring of all the events that actually took place. They tried to communicate with the MGM Grand for 3 days, and they wouldn't talk to them. They unplugged everything. They didn't launch ransomware until the third day because they had a third party come in and get into a chat room and actually say, we don't know about that. We turned everything off. So the MGM Grand was not communicating with these people. One of the things you got to realize, the landscape has changed. It's not Joey Bag of Donuts down at the coffee shop anymore. And if you look at the estimated head count of APT 28, it's somewhere between 300 and 400 people. They've got actual departments that do just water holes. They do malicious websites just specifically to get you to come in. Okay? They got one group of people that only do OSINT. So you're dealing with large organizations that have the time and the budget because they've already taken down 160 people in 1 year for a ton of money. They hit Caesars, I think in May, they asked for 40 million. Caesars gave them 20. They went away. So that's 20 million bucks. And if they did that with 160 people, and that's not all the people that actually report it, okay? Kind of makes sense? So what I want you to take away from this is AI can be a good thing. AI is a great thing, especially for my teenage daughter. Helps her write those reports for the U.S. government class she's in. She hates it. Can help you do your job really quick. But it's got two sides to it. The bad guy knows it's there. It can help them. You need to be aware of the risks. You need to get your people involved in training, okay? It's like the late, great Kevin Mitnick said, God rest his soul, you got to get your people trained. Because if your people get trained the right way to not do stupid things like pick up a rubber duck in a parking lot and go, wow, I wonder what's on this USB, and stick it in their computer, it's bad juju, right? Okay. I've got 3 minutes left. Any questions whatsoever? I can hear you, but you can.
I want to use it because it sounds cool.
Okay.
When I get texts or emails from obviously non-English speaking people,
yes,
are they using AI and are just programming it to not speak correctly with correct grammar, or is that just
you're getting Billy Bob in the coffee shop, okay, in the hut or the tent or whatever. He's got a laptop, but the problem is when you get to WormGPT, that's what we're facing. They're putting out phishing campaigns and all that stuff, and is it live or is it Memorex? It's that good. It literally, it will come in. So I switched email accounts, and my Navy Fed account goes to something that's encrypted and off. And in one of my old accounts, I still get a thing from Navy Fed, and I know it's not them, but you could put that email now in the last 2 months up against a real email in my encrypted account. You can't tell the difference who sent it. The only way I know, I know that email account's not associated with that anymore, but if I actually go into the headers and I find out what IP address the email generated from, and it's like, that ain't Navy Fed, right? So, yes. If it looks bad, it's bad, but that's the problem. With AI, it's making it to where you can't tell. And you want to give that prince in Namibia $50,000 to get his throne back. I didn't say that. It's not my fault. So if there's no other questions, because we have 1 minute left, if you guys over the next day, 2 days, want to come over to my Tinker table, we can sit down, we'll go through all the features of the camera, how easy it is to lock down stuff. I will show you how to create a root certificate in Configuration Manager, how to sign certificates. We'll even do some scans with Nessus. If you want, we'll do Nmap, and matter of fact, we'll do ZenMap, and I'll put VolScan in it so you can see how VolScan works with Nmap. Thank you for your time.
Bosch, invented for life.